if the diet you're eating doesn't enable you to do the most good in the world, is that really the most responsible diet? Is that really the most compassionate diet? Is that empathetic? And I think there are certainly people who believe that a plant-based diet will enable them to do good in the world.
Right.
That's a separate thing. But there are many within the plant-based and vegan communities who we love and respect and are empathetic toward, who will also say, I don't care if it harms me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to harm an animal. And you think, what good could they do in the world that they're not able to do because they're not giving their body the nutrients it needs to truly thrive? And that's really a difficult argument to make, is that the nutrients in animal foods, I mean, this is something I'm sure you talk about on the podcast, that I talk about on my social media all the time. It's very hard to argue that a plant-based diet is more nutrient rich than an animal-based diet, or even in any way, shape, or form, a shadow of an animal-based diet in terms of nutrients. And so the real clear reality is that if you are not including animal foods in your diet, you need to work very hard to replace all of those nutrients, some of which we don't even know about, with synthetic, suboptimal, less fully bioavailable, non-bioidentical forms. And that's certainly going to limit what you can achieve in the world, how kind you can be to your children, people you meet, your creativity. What good could you do in the world with that nourishment? But we can talk about other arguments and nuances behind, you know, wanting to do harm to things around you, because I think that I always go back to this. If people have heard me interviewed talking about the ethics of a vegan diet, life requires death, right? In order for something to live, something else must die. This is the way of life. And that's not something that the Hadza shy away from. They celebrate it. I think that we've forgotten this because we're so removed. Very few of us are hunting. But if you were hunting, if you really had to hunt and gather all of your food, we would realize very quickly that there is no life without death. That's a cycle. That's okay. I think it should be done respectfully and with the intention of what we do with that nourishment in mind. But you can't avoid that. It's really just a fallacy. It's a delusion. Going back to the idea of mental health, I mean, it's delusional to think that we can live without resulting in some sort of death. I mean, you drive your car, you're going to run over a bug on the highway. You are driving your car, there's going to be a cricket that flies into the windshield. You're harming things. There are actually religious adherents, I think it's called the Jains or the Giants, who like just, they don't even want to harm anything. So they just try and breathe. These breatharians, they don't even want to harm a bug or any, it's just at some level we think to exist in the world, we must impact other things, and that's okay depending on the spirit and the responsibility with which we do that walk.
Yeah. There's examples from the East where some of those monks will have kind of helpers walk in front of them, sweeping the streets and all kinds of stuff like that to avoid that harm, but there's no escaping it. And you said about that spiritual framework, what's really interesting, I've studied a lot of like these more ancestrally appropriate tribes, and spiritually speaking, some of these medicine men in these tribes might be the most spiritually connected people in the world that we could find today. They believe in animism, everything is alive, and they really have this celebratory aspect of life and death. And what I always found very fascinating in those cultures, the medicine men that were conducting the shamanic or doctoral work within those cultures, they reserved the meat for those people because they needed the strength in order to be the conduit of healing for the other people. And that meant that if there was only a small amount of meat, it was going to the medicine man because he could do the most good, and everybody else would fall back on the survival food like the plants. And they're the most spiritually connected people in the world, you know, in arguably, I guess.
Yeah. And if you look deeper, I mean, down the rabbit hole of the vegan delusion or a plant-based illusion, said with the most compassion I possibly can, to prepare a field to grow plants requires killing thousands, tens of thousands of bugs, insects, rodents, snakes, displacing birds. So there is no life without death. And it's just a matter of where you choose to put that. And I think when you look at this isn't the most sexy conversation. Growing plants on the land without an animal input, whether you're putting manure or worm castings, or you're actually having a cow graze on that land, you are removing, it's a one-way street. You're bringing nutrients from the soil to the plant, and then you're eating the plant, and then you're not putting your poop back in that soil. You're putting your poop in the sewage. So it's only a one-way street. You're just removing nutrients from the soil. How is that respecting the soil? The way that these ecosystems are supposed to work is that animals are all sharing the nutrients, right? A vole or a badger or whatever, you know, is digging in the ground. A rabbit is going to eat some of the plants, then it's pooping and peeing, it goes back into the soil. We're removing that with one direction. I mean, all of these industrial agriculture, your kale is grown industrially, perhaps it's grown biodynamically in your backyard, but the majority of what's in grocery stores is on these large tracts. Even if it's an organic farm, it's a one-way transit. It's a one-way road of nutrients and minerals and, vital pieces of the soil into the plants, and either into landfills, which are not going to be used to regrow soil, into sewage systems. It's a crazy thing. So how is that not destroying an ecosystem? How is that not destroying the land? I really think that when you imagine that and you understand that a systematic, a cyclic version is the only way in which life continues, having animals and plants on the land at the same time is the only compassionate way to produce your food.
Yeah.
You cannot produce plant food without animals.
Yeah. Hello, friends. If you enjoyed that clip, then you can watch the entire thing by heading to this link over here, or you can find us wherever you find podcasts by searching Radical Health Radio. If there's value here, please hit that like button. Let us know in a comment what your biggest takeaway was, and hit subscribe. Support the show as we support you. We'll see you soon.